I'm Naeth, a professor of land reclamation and restoration ecology at the University of Alberta and director of the energy systems programs. Good evening. It's my pleasure to be here with you to talk about energy and Sustainable Development Goal 7. As with all of the Sustainable Development Goals, there are way too many aspects of SDG 7 for one presentation. For example, if you enter SDG 7, it will yield between 541,000 and 8,730,000 hits, depending on the search engine you use. So we will focus today, and the areas I will focus on are energy systems, the energy transition that we are in, key University of Alberta programs, and land reclamation. So for those of you that don't think about the connection of land reclamation and energy, it'll be an opportunity to learn about that. Sustainable Development Goal 7 calls for access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. And each of these words is equally important in our understanding and work towards the SDG 7. Some current energy systems may be affordable, but not reliable or sustainable. And some may be reliable, but not affordable. And then there's some that are affordable and reliable, but they may not be sustainable. And certainly many of them may not be considered modern. So SDG 7 is a very important goal, as they all are, but this provides the foundation to achieve many of the other 17 Sustainable Development Goals for humanity to have health, education, food and water, innovation, a sustainable planet, and even for life itself. To understand SDG 7, we do need to understand energy systems, and I put great emphasis on the word system. Here is a very simplified schematic of our energy system. Easy, right? Actually, it's not as complicated as it may appear when you focus on the different components, like sources and uses and what connects them. So visualize yourself in the middle, in that green box, and all of those sources of energy coming to you. Some you're going to use right now, some are going to be stored for later. And this visualization can help lead to a simpler understanding of an energy system. Now let's get into a bit of detail on energy systems. An energy system generates energy and delivers it to you. Now, we're all familiar with that system. We use it every time we flip a light switch, plug in a cell phone or a toaster. We use it when we travel to the grocery store, or in the very near future, boarding a plane to some exciting location. The system begins wherever the energy is generated, whether it's from a coal-fired plant or a wind farm. And the system includes everything that transmits power from that source to your outlets and switches or to our storage systems. It includes efficiency of the devices that use the energy. And the system includes anything that is influenced or being influenced by that journey. There's a lot of technology, as you probably gleaned from that little system slide I just showed you. But technology is only part of the picture. An energy system impacts its environment, and those impacts help determine how viable it is, how acceptable it is. Energy systems have enormous economic, political, and social implications. And as you might expect, there are jobs associated with energy production, delivery, storage, and use. And as we all know from repeated history, entire communities, social structures, and empires can rise and fall based on energy, just reiterating the importance of energy. So let's jump back a little bit in time. Before the Industrial Revolution, we got energy from mussels, wind, and water. Burning coal to produce steam to turn engines was a huge change and made the Industrial Revolution possible. So think of everything that changed during that period. Energy usage was increasingly centralized in cities, remaking maps across the world. Rural communities began to shrink at the same time as urban communities expanded. The environment was impacted by emissions and waste products like never before. Productions of goods changed, and so did trade. And politics shifted. There were new economic winners and losers that emerged. People's lifestyles changed dramatically, and their expectations for what their lifestyles should be also changed. Now, our current energy system is rooted in principles of that industrial revolution, mainly with energy generation centralized and energy flowing in one direction. Large grids carry energy, usually from a faraway power plant. And power is available all day, every day, and that defines the way we live our lives. Except, of course, when a storm knocks down transmission lines and the grid needs to be restored. As energy systems evolve, we have a transition. And as you know, we are in transition today. Reliable power is needed 24/7 around the world for hospitals and other necessities of life. Yet we are well aware of the implications of our current system and the need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, climate change, and other environmental issues associated with that current system. We're moving towards different infrastructures and new energy system to meet our current needs and priorities. So transitioning from that system that reliably delivered energy for over a century is going to take time. We need to understand each of the steps so we can plan how to address the challenges. Some countries and jurisdictions are going to transition much more quickly than others. Some will skip steps, others are going to take more time and even more steps to make that transition. And it's pretty important to attain SDG 7 that we understand and accept these different spatial and temporal aspects of SDG 7. We must recognize that not all are on or can move at the same speed and in the same way. Energy transition is not simply changing an energy source. So it's not like waking up one day and saying, I'm not going to use hydrocarbon energy anymore, we're going to wind or solar. Because moving from hydrocarbon-based energy to renewable energy requires change in all other parts of the system. Change in energy generation, transmission, distribution, storage, and use. And all of those, each of those, have their own complications and requirements. So all of this is rooted in, of course, and driven by economics, politics, and social structures, complicating the scenario even more. So you can see the enormous work and requirements in just one little part of the planet, shifting from coal or wood to wind or solar generated energy. As I said, it's complex. Infrastructure and societal acceptance are just a few of the hurdles in the quest to balance needs and wants of individuals, populations, and communities. And there are some realities we need to address that may not necessarily mesh with our desires or with our beliefs. And one of these realities is that we cannot immediately rid our world of hydrocarbon-based energy. It will be needed as we move through this transition, probably for decades. So how do we balance that with the equal need of reducing greenhouse emissions? Perhaps a trade-off? So as we move towards renewable energy, we can minimize impacts of non-renewable energy with new technology. And keeping in mind that any plan we develop must not work only in theory, but in reality, regardless of those trade-offs that we're willing to accept. So thus, interdisciplinarity is critical to achieve this energy transition and SDG 7. The University of Alberta is a very proud contributor to achievement of SDG 7. We've focused on energy research for decades, achieving excellent status for that work. And the programs we currently have in place will enable 40,000 person years of work based on over 100 projects and 1,000 focused researchers, students, and staff. And this 40,000 person years is tied to the Future Energy Systems program, which I'll tell you about in a moment. So these programs at the University of Alberta bring together researchers to work together on SDG 7 challenges. Can you imagine how a mechanical engineer, a feminist English and film studies professor, and a resource economist might use different terms even when they're agreeing about something related to energy? How might they bring different perspectives to an energy problem to help us achieve our goals? So by bringing people together and facilitating conversations, we are creating these opportunities for researchers to access expertise they might not even know exist in our own institution, as well as beyond our institution with other partners around the planet. So a couple of the programs, the Energy Systems Signature Area of Teaching and Learning provides an umbrella under which the activities can be focused and coordinated for growth and longevity. So it embodies technology, the environment, and responsible stewardship. The signature area includes several key programs, but the one I want to talk about today is the Future Energy Systems program. Future Energy Systems is the current prominent research program that was launched with $75 million from the Government of Canada through the Canada First Research Excellence Fund. It was the largest research grant for the University of Alberta in its history. In that program, we address responsible development of hydrocarbons. So remember that trade-off that I mentioned a moment ago? That's where this comes in. Taking our current technology, making it greener, making it more efficient. As we focus on environmental performance, also renewable energy, of course, and the social sciences and humanities aspects of energy systems. And within each of those four areas that you see on the left-hand side of the slide, we also have several specific research themes and programs within it. So those projects bring together engineers with anthropologists, environmental scientists with economists, business scholars with sociologists, and many more. Our program researchers work with Indigenous communities. We work with government, with industry, and not-for-profit groups to tackle real problems. Just an example, one such problem is the role of energy in homelessness in Canada's rural Indigenous northern communities. It's very important for us to understand that poverty and homelessness put people in a position that changing energy systems isn't necessarily their highest priority. All of our researchers understand that energy systems are complex and that they have to work together to make SDG 7 and a broader energy transition possible. So let's focus the last part of this presentation on sustainability. To make energy access sustainable requires environmental responsibility. And this is where land reclamation, my specific area of research, comes into the picture. Land reclamation, quite simply, is focused on making a small footprint as we live on the planet. In an energy context, it's about soil reclamation, contaminant removal, and revegetation. So let's tie that to energy and SDG 7. Regardless of the source of energy generation, renewables or non-renewables, the environment will be affected. And that is another one of those realities. A coal mine or a pipeline will obviously have a much bigger and different environmental impact than a geothermal well or a solar array. But that geothermal well and that solar array will still disturb the land. They will still impact the environment. And those impacts will be on soil, vegetation, hydrology, and the atmosphere. Hence, they need to be reclaimed, and at different stages, after development, during operation, and obviously upon decommissioning, to ensure that the land, the environment, is not compromised in meeting our energy demands. And it's exciting. Land reclamation is also evolving. We no longer come in only at the end of a development to clean up the mess. We are part of the planning process, addressing land and water use, management, and conservation. And not only for current disturbances, but legacy ones from our past. When we think of moving into renewables, we will have a lot of those legacies around the world, including mine sites, for example. And with increasing population growth, continuing population growth, we simply cannot leave those legacy disturbances unreclaimed. The reality is we need every bit of the planet we have to be usable. So lots of work for land reclamation professionals. As we tackle SDG 7, we are in such an exciting space of innovation. It would take me a long time to tell you about all the exciting projects that we're working on at the University of Alberta, so you can check out our websites to get more detail. We have research projects on creating fuels from biomass, about smart grids, storage technologies, and environmental impact reduction. For example, can you imagine using chicken feathers to make an adsorption material that will remove contaminants from processed water? Did you ever think we'd be able to genetically engineer bacteria so they could turn methane into jet fuel? Or store energy in anything other than a battery? So many of these topics and things that we never even thought about a few years ago, and so many more are being addressed by researchers and their students across the planet and here at the University of Alberta, contributing to making SDG 7 a global reality. So you might ask, how can you help? How can each of us make a difference? We all know that energy is a polarizing topic right now. There are many strong opinions and there is a lot of misinformation. I said a few times, energy systems are complicated, and thus attaining SDG 7 is also complicating. And if you add to this the spatial and temporal variability that we have around the world among adapters, it becomes even more dynamic and complicated. So those with access to world-leading knowledge about energy transition really must lead the way in thinking and in actions. Obviously, you can make sustainable choices in your own life, where you buy your fuel, how much you use your electricity, etc. But equally important is to try to understand why some countries might be lagging behind others in energy changes and why they might require different approaches. And I think that can help us to become less impatient in expectations that we have for this energy transition and more understanding and less judgmental. Recognizing we're not all on the same trajectory and timeline in our transition, but we're all on the same journey nevertheless. And I think it's important for all of us to remember that together we are shaping the future of energy and getting closer to SDG 7. It's easy to focus on where we would like to be and how we're lagging in some areas, but we're doing pretty good. And I really emphasize the word or the phrase shaping the future, because our choices, our goals, how we deal with realities are what will and what are shaping that energy future. So thank you, all of you, for making me part of International Week. Thank you to everybody who's sharing this transition journey and helping to make SDG 7 possible. Thank you.